So at this point, I've unwrapped every object. So if we go through, we can see the head, lid up, bolt, jaw, brow. Each of these objects has been unwrapped, and I've also oriented each of them so that they go in a they're straight up and down or straight horizontal. Okay, and I've given everything a name. Now there's one tool that I wasn't using before that you should be aware of. If you after you've laid out your UVs, very often they'll be like crooked like this, right? And one tool that's really handy that I think is also new is one that's down here under Arrange and Layout. It's called Orient to Edge. So if we have an edge selected, like say this one and one here, well, we got it both places there. Oh, well, it's only active because it's active on both. But because it's the edge that is attached to both, right? But if we want to orient these now, we can say Orient to Edges, and see it finds the nearest horizontal or vertical. If I'd picked a horizontal one, it would use that to orient horizontally. So I've named everything, but you can see this one's not named. And that's because I'm going to combine it with this object. I'm going to combine it with that object. But anyway, we've got everything named just simply, and I haven't put a designation on there for left or right yet because I'm about to copy half of them over. But first, before I do that, I want to make sure everything is got the same textile density, because later, even when we lay out all these parts, it's going to shrink them all the same amount or scale them all the same amount. So I want to make sure before doing that everything has the same density, or relative to each other has the same density. So if we go to the Transform tab, it's under Tools, under there, under right here, Textile Density. Remember, under the Transform tag, you got to scroll to the bottom. And I'm going to set it to like 5. Just set everything to 5. Okay, and just say Set. So now all these objects, if I give them the same textile density, there, now relative to each other, they're all correctly scaled. Okay, and now I'm going to select everything. Well, I'm going to select them by object. Go into object mode, select everything. Then some objects, I'm going to hit Control, and I'm going to deselect those that are in the center, right? And so, because those I'm not going to copy, but the rest, I'm going to make sure that they all have an origin at the center. So I'm going to use Freeze and Reset. So now if we were to say, use any of these tools, we can see that their pivot point is right at the center. Then we're going to go Edit, Duplicate, and then we're going to scale it by -1. We don't have our outliner up, so quickly I'm going to go over here to the classic view, right, and look to our outliner, channel box I should say, not that. Okay, then go Scale X -1. Okay, and then Freeze, Reset that. Okay, in the old days that would reverse the normals, but now it doesn't anymore. Okay, now I'm going to select everything. Right, they're all selected. Oh, wait a sec. Those that we copied, they need to be flipped. So these down to here. Look, if we look at their color, they're going to be red, right? Because their normals are reversed. So we need to flip those. So we can come over here and say flip. We can decide which direction. We'll just flip it in the U direction and say flip. Well, it looks like it's not going to let me scale more than, or flip more than one object at a time. So I'm going to go to the elbow, select it by selecting all the shells, right, and then we're going to say flip. right? And now you can see it's blue. That's what we needed. So we go to wrist, flip. Okay, once we've been through all of them, we can check from top to bottom here, and I'm seeing all blue. Another way we could check it if it got to be too busy would be again to turn on our selection constraints. We could say, all right, only select back facing, and we drag across, and we're not selecting anything. So let's turn that off. So we have everything facing forward, and we have it duplicated. UV shell, select everything, and say layout. Okay, and look at that, it has fit everything together. Only trouble is it's really tight. Really, we'd like a little bit of a gap. We don't want things touching like that, because when you use paint programs and things, they like to bleed off the side a little bit. So that is too close. So we're going to go in layout. We'll hold down the shift key, click on there. You'll see we get the options, and right here what we need is shell padding, and let's go at least 4 pixels. Okay, like that. We'll choose pixels, and then we'll say apply. Now notice everything's backed away. There's a little bit of a gap everywhere. So we've got all our UVs laid out. Now there's just a little bit of house cleaning I'd still like to do. And for one, these rings on either side of the torso, I'd like to combine them with the torso. So this, and we'll combine them into one object. So we will say mesh, combine. Okay, and we'll delete the history. So now we'll call that torso. Okay, and then we will come down here, and we'll also combine those rings here. So we'll select those two and this right up there. So we'll do mesh, combine, and we don't want to leave empty nodes up there like this. So we'll again freeze and reset. So make sure, look, those will be, this has got to go, right? And so now we'll just say, call that a pelvis. So we have fewer groups now. We don't have groups that are named odd anymore. So we'll select one side, and then we'll group it. And we'll select the other side. We'll group that. Okay, so we're going to select the group node of those objects on the left-hand side, and then we're going to say modify prefix hierarchy names, and we're going to just say L so that it's for the left. L underscore. We'll say OK. You'll see everything under there has been renamed with the L underscore in front of it. And then for this group, we'll do the same thing. We'll say modify prefix hierarchy names. This time we're going to say R. Okay, and now these have this 1 after them. We don't like that, right? So we're going to say modify search and replace. Search for 1, replace with nothing. So we'll do that for the selected group. Hit apply. Okay, it didn't like being replacing it with nothing. So the trick is to put a space in there and then hit apply. And that way it will replace 1 with nothing, which is actually a space, but that won't be part of the name. Let's just ungroup, and ungroup, and group all these back together. And we'll just call that robot for now. So now that our model's UV'd, we have flexibility. So we don't need to make use of the UV map, but we can. So now we can do 3D paint on the model, or we could take it into a third-party package like Substance Painter, and we could create textures for it there. Or we could use Maya's paint tools, which we'll get into later. Or we could still just assign color to each part and not even use the UVs, but we'll have flexibility now.